Chanel Clark is the marketing manager at Ārepa, a business created to make brains work better. We chat about her role and how the business has grown in her time there. We also chatted about marketing a purpose-driven business, which gives great insights into how marketing is more than just product placement, even on a grander scale. That allows the team to do more than content marketing, adding what could be classed as events, but with more meaning behind it. If you're not from New Zealand, here's some context for our chat. FMCG stands for fast moving consumer goods. In other countries, it can be called consumer packaged goods or CPG, but essentially it's this whole industry and ecosystem of marketing roles and sales roles and kind of stands alone as its own type of marketing in some aspects. Ultimately, the drinks are available in supermarkets and dairies, also known as groceries and corner stores, and is also available online for one-off purchases or subscriptions from their website to make things super simple. And also their supplements and powders are available on their website too. I discovered Ārepa before it was in supermarkets, at least in my town. So it's been great to see it expand and become more accessible to people, which does put Chanel's role in a unique position. It's FMCG, but it's not something like crackers that would only ever sell in those retail environments. Plus, those brand values and the mission allow it to overlap into other positive spaces. So I'm excited for their products and their mission to take over the world. Welcome to the podcast, Chanel. It's so good to have you.
Thank you.
So to kick us off, tell us about your work history and your role at Ārepa.
My history into marketing probably wasn't the most traditional. I studied communications and journalism at uni. So while I was at uni, actually, I ended up landing an internship at a social media agency, which kind of introduced me into the whole marketing world. And I think back then it was just as Facebook ads had started. So that was really interesting to kind of be introduced into what social media actually was from a business and a brand point of view, but then also how, Facebook ads was working for businesses and what that sort of meant. So that was kind of, I guess my intro into marketing. And then I stayed there. I ended up getting a full-time job there after my internship, which was really cool. And then after that, I kind of pivoted and, it was still in the marketing world, but I got a job as a magazine editor. And that was kind of trial by fire because, I had no magazine editing experience. I just love to read. I love to kind of put things together. So being in charge of a whole magazine on my own, like end to end of, making up what are the themes each month, what writers do we need, what ads do we want, who's going to contribute, it was a lot of work, but it was really, really rewarding. And then after that, I actually went more in the B2B space. I was a marketing and comms exec at a business buying company. And that was a hard one for me because I always enjoy and love everything I do. And for me, I didn't love what I was doing, but I could see the value in what I was doing, both professionally and personally. So I think I stayed there for about 3 years. Unfortunately, the end of the third year, COVID hit and I was made redundant. So I ended up just hustling. I was on Upwork. I was writing Google ad copy for Wish. I think it was paying me like $8 per ad I was writing. It was a very humbling time in my career. And on top of that, I was reaching out to other agencies or just anyone really that I thought would be cool to work for and essentially offering my help for free because I just needed to stay busy. That was kind of like lockdown phase. And then I got a job at a digital agency called Roam. And that was really interesting. I was initially hired as a growth manager for a SaaS product, which introduced me into the whole product and tech world, which is a whole different kettle of fish of what I'd been used to. And then on top of that, I was also marketing manager for the company as a whole. So that was interesting. And then while I was there, I actually got headhunted by one of the co-CEOs for Ārepa. And it was really interesting because I had tried the product previously before I'd even been contacted them by them. And I think because I'm in marketing, I'm quite a cynical person. So I was like, there's no way this works. Here's just another brand being like, oh yeah, we're science-backed, we've done the research, it'll help improve brain function. And I was like, nah. And I think I probably tried it 2 or 3 times before I genuinely believed that it would work. And one of the times it was because I had it before a massive presentation I was doing. And I hate public speaking. I'm trying to get better at it because it seems to be something that keeps coming up for me and I refuse to say no to opportunities. But I had this and I literally chugged it back, did the presentation, flew through it, wasn't even nervous. And I was like, all right, maybe this shit does work. And then sure enough, about 6 months later, one of the co-CEOs reached out to me on LinkedIn And he was like, hey, we're just looking for hiring a marketing manager, not anytime soon, but just seeing like who's available. Your experience interests us. Like, would you be keen for an interview? 8 months later, I had an email from one of the recruiters actually, and she was like, hey, they're really keen to interview you. And I was like, oh my God, like talk about making a girl wait. Like, had the interview, I think in about 10 seconds, I was like, you guys have to hire me. Like, this is the coolest company. It's purpose driven. They're trying to achieve something. There was so much guts and depth into the brand and what they were trying to do, rather than just being like, oh yeah, we just sell, a product to people, we make loads of money. So I think after that first interview, it kind of lit a fire in me. I realized I wanted to leave where I was, but also just realizing that I kind of had a new baseline of where I wanted to work as a marketing manager and what I wanted to achieve in my career. And when I got the call to say I got the job, I think I recorded it on my phone. I was like beside myself. Like I was ready for a new opportunity, ready to sink my teeth into stuff. I think it was also like a whole lot of relief, because the second interview, they made me sit in a room for 45 minutes on my own and come up with a marketing campaign plan for a product launch. And I was like, you guys are either geniuses or like the worst people I've ever met, but like game on. Like I'm not going to shy away from this challenge. So hopefully I impressed them. But yeah, that was really how my marketing career started at Ārepa, and that was January last year I started.
That's cool. I love that of like, so often you see in like a marketing manager job description of like X number of years experience in specific industry. And it's like, well, if you can bring your knowledge from all of these other spaces that you have been in and combine that knowledge for this company, why not? And it might not, to some people, it might not look like a linear line of going through a thing, but ultimately the skills that you learned in each of those roles is what got you to where you are today. So
and that was the thing that was interesting. I think I was kind of like this wild card hire, because at the time, like everyone that had been hired within the company, there was only 5 of them. They were all mates from like uni days or met along the way. I was the first hire who had no relationship with anyone within the company. They'd never had a marketing manager before. I also didn't have FMCG experience, so I'm sure there was like some interesting discussions in the office once I got hired. Everyone would have been like, what the hell are you doing? Like, who is she trying to come in and run our marketing with no FMCG experience? But I look back at it now, and I think that was probably, personally, great decision because they hired me. But professionally, I think it worked really well for us, because then I kind of approached our marketing from an angle that no one else in the FMC industry was doing. And I think that's what's made us stand out so much, especially last year. Like we saw our brand awareness, we track it with Tracksuit. We saw our brand awareness grow like 12% in 11 months. And like brands don't do that in 6 years. And I'm like, well, something worked.
Nice. Also, the thing about FMCG is that you aren't a supermarket only brand, and also a few years ago you weren't in the supermarket. So also there's that thing of you bring that other perspective, so that you don't just like, oh well, it's in the supermarket, it's like slap your hands, we're done, we'll just put some billboards up every so often and we're done, because there is so much room for expansion beyond just that. Like obviously there's other stores, but you have your online store, branching out into other countries, all of these things. Like sometimes the experience that you think you want in your staff member is actually maybe not what you end up with, and you end up with something better.
Yeah, and I think like had I had that FMCG experience, I would have come on and done what every other marketing manager for every other FMCG company does, and focus on those things. Whereas because I had social media experience, I had magazine experience, or like a physical product that someone was reading, I had the B2B experience, the product experience. It was kind of like this, I guess, melting pot, for lack of a better word, of like me understanding what the full customer journey could look like, whether someone was finding us in a supermarket, seeing us on a billboard, seeing us on social, seeing us on a website, seeing us in the newspaper. It was kind of, I think I realized like when I got in the role, I was like, all right, like I know some shit. But like for the first week or two, I was like, oh God, like was I the mistake hire? I'm on the 30-day trial and they're just going to kick me out and be like, you know nothing.
Also, when I started working, I was interfacing with some FMCG clients, and it's kind of that thing of like, I've shopped in a supermarket. I understand how FMCG works. Like
Mm-mm.
it has its niches, but sometimes that's in the sales side and not as much in the marketing side as well. But also that brand awareness piece, like that 12% increase often doesn't happen like just by being on the shelves. So obviously you need to do it a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the thing, right? Like, regardless of what my opinion was, the data spoke for itself. Like, we increased brand awareness 12%, and to look at what our competitors were doing, who was nowhere near what we were doing. I mean, at the start, everyone's like, no one else is doing this. Like, what the hell, Chanel? Like, why? And I was like, guys, just like, trust me, it'll pay off. Thank God it paid off. I
Yeah.
think otherwise I would have been like, you know what? I'm out. Like, thanks for the opportunity.
I tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes too, like there's a balance of doing the things that everyone else is doing because they work, and then there's to forge a new path and to stand out outside of everyone else. You do have to do something different at a certain point. So there's a balance of the two. I mean, can't just be standard.
And I think for us too, is like where we kind of already created, I suppose, like the rod for our own back, because we're paving our way in an industry that never existed before. Because when we first launched, we were like, oh, we're nootropics. Everyone knows what nootropics is. It's this fancy new buzzword. It means that it helps your brain. Like, that's where we are.
Yeah.
And then we quickly realized everyone was like, oh yeah, well, we're nootropics too. So like kombucha was jumping on board. You had like these coffee drinks that had mushrooms in them. They were like, oh yeah, we're nootropics. And we were like, oh my God, we are not nootropics anymore. Like, this category is getting way too crowded. We've done way too much research to be put in with everyone else. I mean, we're the only drink in the Southern Hemisphere clinically tested and proven to the level that we are. So we were like, right, we need to create our own category. And part of that, I suppose, it's kind of like it's a very interesting space to be in, because we're already trying to market in a way we've never done before, as well as create a category that's never existed before. So there's a hell of a lot of education that has to happen when you create your own category. But it's also great because then everything's a new opportunity, because no one's done it before. But then it's shit because no one's done it before. So you're like, oh my God, I've got nothing to compare to. Like, we are figuring this out as we go.
Yeah, exactly. And for those who aren't in New Zealand, maybe explain what Ārepa is.
Yeah, so we're a brain food technology company from New Zealand. So we specialize in providing products that make your brain work better. The product we're most well known for is our brain drink. So we use 3 key ingredients to do it. So we've got neuroberry blackcurrants, pine bark extract, and L-theanine. We've patented the formula, so no one can do what we do, which is great. And we also worked with a world-renowned neuroscientist, actually ranked 4th in the world, to develop the formula, Professor Andrew Scully. So we've done our research before the product. I mean, it was 10 years in the making. Like, when I came on board, I can't take credit for anything. I just market it. I mean, it would be great if I could, but this thing was 10 years ago in the making. The guys behind it, Angus Brown and Zach Robinson, have done an insane job. And even just I suppose the level of detail they went to figuring out what needed to be in the product and the amounts to work. So essentially how it makes your brain work better is the strain of black currants we use are the black currants with the highest level of anthocyanins, which is what makes food purple. It's also really good at oxygenating the blood. So the more blood you can get to the brain, the better your brain functions. The pine bark extract we use is really good at helping you focus. It's actually a natural alternative to Ritalin, and it's also used in high dosages for traumatic brain injury and concussion recovery. So that's been really cool because it's allowed us to play in a space of like we work with the All Blacks, we work with a lot of other rugby players, a lot of motocross drivers, just anyone that's susceptible to having head knocks. And then the fact that it's an alternative to Ritalin, we have a huge amount of anecdotal evidence from customers who suffer from ADHD who are being able to use us with their ADHD medication, or actually completely come off their ADHD medication and use us on our own. And then we also use L-theanine, which is the amino acid from green tea, so really good at kind of calming you down if you're stressed out or anxious.
Yeah. And so I found Ārepa before I got diagnosed with ADHD, and obviously didn't know I had ADHD at that point because like I had feelings and thoughts about it, but it's sort of like surely if I did, I would know by now. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, no, it looks different in girls, so you weren't. But immediately I could tell a difference. Of course you have that thing of like, is this just a placebo effect?
Yeah.
But it does work. And then when of course I figured out the ADHD and the L-theanine connection, I was like, oh yeah, well that makes sense. And obviously I
Mm.
didn't totally understand the two other ingredients, but I was hooked, so it didn't matter. And so I started out with the drink, and then now I have the supplement mostly out of just like convenience and whatnot. Also partially because like I'll start a drink and not finish it. All of my cups of tea can attest to that. So yeah, I really love the product. And it's what's been really interesting to see is like it pop up in different places. Obviously, I'm not in Auckland; based in Whangarei,
Hmm.
and so billboards are fewer and far between here versus in Auckland you see them all the time.
Yeah.
So I haven't necessarily seen that piece, but it's like it's in the supermarket, and oh look at that, it's taking up a few more spaces, and then you hear a few things about it in the media. Yeah, so it's been really interesting to see as from my perspective of really wanting the research and development to be done from that brain perspective, so that so that more things can happen, and that would be exciting if basically the same knowledge could be put into other areas. But I can see how when like nootropics became a buzzword, all of the people who maybe have the best intentions but aren't really getting there start using all of the words, and so then you find that you can't use those words because you don't actually want to be aligned with them, and so then you have your own kind of ways of explaining it that are backed by science instead of using the buzzwords.
Yeah, and I think for us that was the big thing, right? Like even when I started with the marketing last year, I came on board trying to figure out like, right, what have we done? Nothing. Great. Okay, clean slate. How do we want to pitch our product? This is where we think we are. And then analyzing who else was pitching their products like that, I was like, this is not where we belong. Like, we are doing ourselves a disservice by saying like, oh yeah, we're with kombucha, or we're with the canned coffee with X amount of caffeine, whatever. Like we definitely pride ourselves in the fact that we've done all the clinical studies, we've done the research, we've figured out what efficacy of each product you actually need to have it work. It's like the difference between buying vitamin C from the supermarket versus a health food store, right? Some people will be like, oh, it's like $10 for 30 caps of vitamin C. And it's like, well, yeah, but figure out how much is actually in those, because you probably need to down the whole bottle to have it be effective. So it was like very much like that for our own education, but also then letting other people know what it meant for us to be like, yes, we're more expensive, and there's a reason because we're more expensive, because we've done the research, we've done the science, we've proven that it works. And I think you'll always get the people who will be like, oh, well, I'll automatically believe in that because I know, that probably a higher price point means better value. But then you still get the people who are like, oh my God, you guys are too expensive, you're marginalizing the market because I don't want to spend $7 or $6 on a bottle. But then they'll go and buy 3 coffees for the day. And then
Mm.
like that becomes like, okay, well, we need to educate those people on why consuming your third cup of coffee in the afternoon is going to make you feel like shit versus, spending a quarter of that on just one of us and then having it hold you throughout the whole day. So it's been a real interesting time, to be honest. And like, it's stuff that I guess the reaction, like we could never predict that. We had to kind of market the product, get it well known, and then just see what happened and be like, oh, okay, sweet. Is everyone loving the fact that it's, more science backed? Is everyone trying to compare us to kombucha? Do they still think they can go and buy a bottle of or a can of Red Bull and think that it does the same? So it's like very much figuring out and adapting as we go of like what people are wanting to see from us from a marketing point of view, which is super interesting. And like now we're growing in Australia as well. And I mean, that's a completely different market. So, the challenges don't stop.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. Also, there's been over the course of the business, starting from the drink, now you have the supplements, the powder. There's also a sparkling drink. Am I missing anything?
No, so we originally launched with the brain drink for performance, which is the still variation. That's very much a concentrated version. So it has, I suppose, for comparison, that from the brain drink for calm and clarity, which is the sparkling, the still has 155 black currants in it versus the sparkling has 33. And I suppose that was a learning, because when we first launched that product, you know, most people either love black currants or they hate them. And everyone was used to the sugary shit that Ribena pushed, right? So that kind of gave New Zealand like this inflated sense of what black currants tasted like. And then they had us and they were like, oh my God, like it's not sweet. It's, you know, it's quite bitter. And we're like, yeah, because this is what a drink tastes like when it's got actual black currants in it, not just, you know, no vitamin C, no sugar, you know, all that stuff. So that in itself was like, people either loved it or hated it. And a lot of the feedback we got, and again, this was pre my time, but a lot of feedback they got was people liked the flavor, but it was just too strong for them. So then I guess phase 2 was the sparkling version, which has less black currants in it. It's sparkling, so it's a little bit lighter, it's more refreshing. I personally prefer that one because I feel like I'm having a fizzy drink, you know, during the day. It's like, oh, you know, this is quite nice. And it's also got added L-theanine in it as well. So that's why we call it the Calm and Clarity one. Whereas the other performance one is, you know, more if you're doing a presentation, off to the gym, that sort of thing. Whereas the Calm and Clarity is, yeah, for those moments when you're stressing out or hit a wall at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at work and you're like, oh God, I got 2 hours left, but I don't want a coffee. So yeah, those are the drinks. And then we do the capsules, and the capsules actually have more pine bark extract in them. So that's what we recommend for people suffering from ADHD or, yeah, athletes with traumatic brain injuries, concussion recoveries. And then we've got the powder. So the powder is just like another, I suppose, format that can be quite easy. You know, if you're a smoothie person, we've got so many great recipes from people that we work with. We've got cafes putting it in slices. So it's sort of just trying to figure out what the formats are for each kind of our customer. And then both brain drinks that we have come in a 300ml bottle and a 250ml can. So the cans, again, was just another way for us to adapt to not only start being put in dairies. There's a health and safety rule I never knew about, would have never even thought of it. You can't have glass bottles above a certain level because it's a health and safety risk. So with cans, we can get closer to eye level, which is really good. And it's also allowed us to, you know, do a lot of stuff. Like if we're looking at doing collabs or something, and we're in, you know, like we recently did a collab with two dudes, men's body care. So we were able to put the cans in their boxes, whereas, you know, trying to ship 500 glass bottles around New Zealand was not really a vibe.
No, I've managed those experiences. Also, the thing was, because again, living in Whangarei, it wasn't available in any of the stores here when I first found it. The box of bottles, I was so surprised when every time they showed up without being broken. It's like an art of having them all so tight in the box that they don't, you know, separate to clang into each other. But yeah, I can see why there's rules about above a certain height being glass. But that's so smart of like, you want it at eye level, therefore you make it in the format that can go at eye level.
Yeah, we're like, we will create this product that you need at eye level. But I think too, it was also a good decision just from a consumer point of view. A lot of consumers are used to drinking a drink from a can. Like I know when I first found Ārepa, before I even started at the company, I'm like one of the clumsiest people you'll ever meet. So the fact that it was in a glass bottle, I was just like, dear God, like I'm going to drop this bright purple liquid. I'm going to get it all over my white outfit, which I shouldn't be wearing anyway. And on top of that, I'm just going to shred glass everywhere. So I think like having it in a can, it's easy. Everyone's aware of drinks being in cans. You know, it's great if you're, say, going to the beach and you just chuck it in your bag. You're not worried about it smashing. So, yeah.
Yeah, such a good idea. But I also like that both of them are recyclable. So it's not like, okay, now we've got like a Tetra Pak or whatever where it's like the secret aluminum or whatever that can't actually be recycled. So I like that all the packaging is able to be recycled that I've purchased. So that's been really good.
Yeah, we're definitely on a mission of sustainability. So I know we are actually looking into B Corp now. That's something that's massively important to the business. Obviously, as we, you know, like there's no point. Like our whole mission is to make brands work better, and that's great. But we don't want to ruin the environment in the process because that just makes no sense for us. So yeah, like that's something we're looking into, which is super exciting.
Yeah, and also just the thing of like, you don't want to have a product but then have some side effect of like, okay, and now it's in plastic, so I now have to think about that. Like, yeah, you can recycle plastic, but that's a whole other thing. With the being for the brain and being a supplement, there are some like medical health things, and then there's some like skeptical people. How do you, especially with like, say, advertising, are there rules that you have to watch out for when you're doing that kind of thing?
Yes, we constantly get audited by the MPI, which is like the governing body of what you can say if you're a
Mhm.
product that claims to do something to a organ. So that's, again, that was something I never even heard of when I came on board. Then suddenly, I'm like, oh, we should, we can claim that we do this and this. And, the guys were like, Chanel, no, you can't put that on social media. Get that off the website. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, this is what we do. So it's more just like very careful around the wording. So everything we say, we're to support neurological function, we're to support healthy sleep, we're to support mental clarity and focus, but we can't claim that we actually do it. And then you go to a country like Singapore,
Mhm.
which we sort of launched in a little bit, not fully yet, but we just struck up a deal with someone. We had a few drinks there. We essentially had to change the packaging, or sorry, the labels on our drinks, because in Singapore you can't even refer to a product being for an organ. So in New Zealand
Wow.
we're the brain drink, whereas in Singapore we were your daily brain drink. So it was more implying a use for your brain rather than saying that it was the brain drink. So stuff like that, like things we've learned along the way, and it's, you would have, there's no playbook for these things. Like, I mean, I had a call a while ago with someone from MPI, I think, just trying to figure out, like, as a new marketer in an FMCG business, like, what have you struggled with? And I'm like, well, I had no idea you guys existed. I don't know what I can or can't say. Like, it's sort of everything we do, we always err on the side of caution. And sometimes that's frustrating from a marketing point of view, because I'm like, I know this product can do this. So I just want to explicitly say that that's what we do. But instead, it kind of feels like we have to tiptoe around it a bit. And I mean, no one else realizes, right? Like, it's always you analyzing the work that you do, but it gets so frustrating sometimes because I'm like, but we can claim this. Like, there's other people claiming less. Like, why can't we claim this? But it's all part of the process, and it's been like a really good learning experience to figure out, like, when you are a product that does do what we can do, it then does open, I guess, a can of worms into that, like, more medicinal pharmaceutical space, which we're aware is somewhere that we are going to end up playing in. So it's kind of probably a blessing in disguise to do that work now, and then figure out when we are marketing these products that are going to be in new markets for us, like in the pharmaceutical space, like, we've already been used to it. It's not like we're going to get there and be like, oh my God, this is so unexpected. We'll be like, yeah, we've done this for 5 years, like, whatever.
Yeah, that's fine. We've done that.
Yeah.
And the other thing about MPI is, like, of course, they're a governing body, so they're never going to be like at the forefront of science because you guys are going to be the ones doing the research. So, and they obviously govern quite a lot of different types of products. So it's just kind of like making sure that you're not at risk of the customer assuming something that isn't actually true. So it's just making sure that you're promoting your product in a way where people understand what it does, but you know, there's a few things that can't be said, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing too, is, like, every day, well, not every day because that'd be very intense, but, every month we're learning new things about the
Yeah.
product and new ways that it can be used and new things that it can prove and different things it can be used for. So I think as much as we're learning, I think the MPI is learning too, because I mean,
Mhm.
I'm sure 10 years ago no one would have thought that a drink with black currants, pine bark extract, and L-theanine could make your brain work better. So it's like everyone's kind of on this journey, right? And we just have to sort of keep them involved in what we're doing and them involved in what we're doing, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely like we're all learning and we're all on the journey together.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. Um, so in terms of the marketing, team structure and how you fit into the business, like, who do you report into and who reports to you?
Yeah, so I have a marketing director who sits in Australia. So she was hired in, I think, November last year.
Mhm.
So last year was quite insane because, yeah, like I said, I was the first marketing hire. Sort of nothing had been done, and then didn't have a team. I was marketing. It was me, myself, and I. But I was the person in the emails being like, "Oh yes, the team might be interested, but I'll have to run it past them." And then in the background, it's just me being like, "Oh, do we want to do this?" Um, so that was really interesting because I suppose for some reason, every role I've ever been in, I'm the first or only marketing hire. So for me, it was like, oh, business as usual. But at the same time, I was like, oh my God, I cannot do marketing for this product by myself because there is so much that, I mean, every marketing person feels like this, right? Like you're spinning 1,000 plates in the air constantly. I think you've got to be a special kind of person to be in marketing, which is probably why we do it. But yeah, there's just so much at Ārepa that we do from a marketing point of view. Like it's not just the out of home campaigns, it's not just the in-store stuff. We do community events, we do activations, we do trade shows. Like I think a lot of people underestimate how much falls under marketing, especially when you are, and like I said, like maybe it's just because I approach it from a different angle, but a lot of FMCG companies aren't doing their marketing the same way that we are. Like we do men's monthly mental health meetups at the office, and as far as I know, no other brand does that. And that's just something that we kind of fell into naturally because it made so much sense for us. You know, if we're all about existing to make brains work better and educate people about their brains, why aren't we providing experiences that do so? And I guess this was something, and I was like, hey guys, we should try this. And they're like, all right, like let us know how that goes. And now, you know, it's like 11 months later, it's happened. We've done it monthly. We've donated over like $6,000 to the Mental Health Foundation. Like it all works. But yeah, there's so much that goes into our marketing that people don't see. So I think like hiring people, last year I managed to get an intern for a bit, which was really good. I think she was an intern for about 2 weeks before I turned to the boys and said we need to pay her because this is slave labor. And then, yeah, we hired a marketing director in Australia just because now that we are rapidly growing in Australia, we needed someone there because it is very hard. Like last year, I was struggling very much to try and do marketing for NZ, marketing for Australia, but be in New Zealand, not understanding the Australian market, but building relationships in Australia. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it just gets to a point where you need more than one person and you can't clone yourself. So therefore you get somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like our marketing team now, like it's a team of 3. So I think a lot of people still expect us to, you know, like, oh, there must be like 10 of you and like someone must do events, someone must do influencers, someone must do campaigns. And I'm like, no.
And then how do you interface with like the sales, logistics, design? How does that all work?
Yeah, so our designers, I would say, sit within our marketing team. That's probably just so we can call ourselves a bit more of a team, but we do work so closely together with them because everything we do from a marketing point of view, I think if you were around when our rebrand happened in June, July last year, we essentially, I suppose, like the context for that was allowing ourselves to, I guess, position the brand as a global brand. Our old branding was very much quintessential New Zealand, and it was nice. It told this lovely little brand story of this Kiwi company owned by Kiwis, made in New Zealand, supported by Kiwis. But then when it comes to the global stage, it's like no one cares that we're from New Zealand. You know, like it does fly in some places. People do love New Zealand brands, but specifically in Australia, people could not give a shit. Like no one wanted to hear
yeah, thanks Aussies.
that. Yeah, no one wanted to, and I don't know if it stems from the rivalry or whatever, but no one wanted to hear that we were a New Zealand brand. No one even cared. So even from a strategic point of view and PR releases, we were taking it out that we were that we were from New Zealand. We were, I guess, pinning it on the fact that one of our co-CEOs is from Australia, pinning it on the fact that our neuroscientist is from Aussie. So again, like that was a learning curve. So then when we did the rebrand, it was very much focusing on like, right, we've got the shiny new branding. Now, how do we want to use it in market? So we lean on the designers a lot. Like our Instagram feed is beautiful, and it is all because of the 2 of them. Like they probably keep us marketing brains in line sometime. Like, I want these crazy ideas, and they're like, no, Chanel, that's very off brand. And I'm like, oh, but, and they're like,
nice.
no. So yeah, like we work with the designers very close. Sales we work with very closely. There's a lot of opportunities that come up, like you mentioned, in retail that we need to do. There's a lot of so I'd say marketing opportunities that are like co-op spend. So we spend a certain amount of money to get those kind of opportunities. And again, it's sort of like, cool, if someone's on our Instagram or on our website, how do they have the same branded experience when they go in store, and what does that look like? And obviously in supermarket, that's a bit harder unless you've got, you know, huge pockets. So from that kind of point of view, we're always looking at what we can do to elevate that brand experience for the customer that's more than just the drink sitting on the shelf. So yeah, we're always talking to sales about what's coming up, what kind of pockets of, you know, marketing areas could we fit into, how could we kind of push our marketing further. I think a lot of supermarkets probably think that we're not needy, but like I'm always trying to find out like what else can we do that other brands haven't done that can make us stand out. Like I don't just want to be in the monthly newsletter. I don't just want to do like the weekly discounts. I want to know like, could we run a campaign that pushes everyone into Pack and Save for a week because, maybe they're trying to go caffeine free or something like that. So we're always working with sales, and then again like logistics comes into it, because there's no point saying that we're going to do this stuff if logistics is like, no, we don't have product. And like that's, I think, really hard for me sometimes, is there's these amazing opportunities, but it'll be a lot of product and the warehouse is like, no, we don't have that. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't have that? This is an amazing marketing opportunity. Like, you have to have it. And they're like, well, we just don't. It's been a massive learning curve in figuring out that just because something from my point of view or in my role is a really good idea doesn't mean that it's always going to work with what sales have going on or with logistics just in terms of getting product. And I think a lot of brands kind of trip themselves up on that. They're, you can have these beautiful ideas and think that everything's going to work out, but logistically, if you can't pull it off, you can't pull it off, and you just have to sort of reconfigure and think like, right, this opportunity isn't right for us now. And that part sucks. Like, I feel like that is worse than having no idea at all. It's almost like the carrot dangled of like, this is something really cool you could do, but right now you can't make it work because of everything else that you've already done.
Yeah, for sure. And also a lot of those like great marketing opportunities are very like time sensitive. So, and also very pressing. So it might be like, well, next month we can do X, but of course logistics is logistics. They can't really get it there faster just by making some magical phone call. Like there's a process behind it. So when they say it can't happen, assuming they are truthfully telling you that, then there's not much you can do about it. And the next opportunity, maybe it's there and you can forecast a little bit and plan ahead a little bit more next time. But ultimately, sometimes it's just, can it happen? Is just important as, do we want to do it? So,
yeah. And I think it's important for us to like, I say that those things happen, but to be honest, 90% of the time, like we make shit work. Like because we are a small team, we can adapt I'm not going to use the word agile because I hate that word, but we can adapt very fast to sort of these last minute things coming in. Like, luckily for us, our office is in Morningside and our warehouse is not too far down the road. So I mean, the amount of times I'm harassing the poor warehouse guys being like, I've got product coming, I'll come pick it up on the way, and then I've got to drop it to someone or whatever. Like, they probably get sick of seeing me, but there's so many things like that because we are still a small team, we can still make stuff work really quickly, which is really nice. I think we would definitely struggle if we were twice the size and the approval process or any of that stuff was bigger than it is. So I think there's a lot of value in us still being the size that we are, because, a lot of people even comment to us on the daily being like, oh, you guys are everywhere, you're doing everything. And some stuff, luckily, looks really well planned out. And in reality, like the office is on fire. We've just organized it an hour beforehand. Like, it was never planned. It was just like a loose phone call of like, hey, this would be cool if you could do this. And we're like, yeah, sure. Hang up the phone and we're like, oh my God, how are we going to make this work? But you just do.
The beauty of it too is that you can drink your calm drink in the car on the way between places and just calm
chug
yourself
it back
calm. Nice. What about from like the business owner's perspective? Like, is it kind of like you have a directive and then every so often you're checking in on a marketing, like updating the team on marketing that you're doing, or how does that work? Like keeping everyone informed?
Yeah, I suppose that's something that we've been really big on this year, is figuring out how to get everyone out of their silos. I think that was a massive issue and I mean, this is just business in general, right?
Yeah.
Like, everyone's sort of like, oh, well, this is my area and this is what I'll do. And it's kind of, I feel like I've always been the kind of person that will come into a business and be like, guys, like, let's all be friends and talk about what we're doing. And I mean, that doesn't work for everyone. I'm well aware, like, I'm not everyone's cup of tea in those moments, but I think it's so important to just talk to each other about what's going on, because since we have started communicating with each other around what we're all doing, it just makes everyone buy in more to like what we're trying to achieve in our overall mission. And I think too, even just giving context, like, like I said before, if marketing has an idea and we want to, lean on sales for support, it kind of helps to bring them in on that journey and be like, well, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is where we think you guys can come in. Let's let logistics know what the opportunity is so that the warehouse doesn't think we're just organizing 500 drinks for nothing. And then at the end of each month, we always try and like send out a big monthly report and, you know, just highlight, I guess, like what the major wins were for the business, any major activity we did. Like I said, we do a lot of events. So those things are really cool to highlight because it's more, other than just the sales data, you know, like, yes, we made money this month, sold X amount of product, great. It's also the community initiatives that we'd love to talk about. It's like the actual measurable impact that we are having on people's lives. And I mean, some of the customer reviews and stuff we get, like, we don't even have to ask for them. People just email in. And some of them, like, it's just goosebump inducing. Like, you've got people suffering from chronic fatigue who can't get out of bed, found our product, and suddenly they're leading a normal life. And for someone like that, like, that's like a money can't buy thing. And then you've just converted, you know, maybe they saw an Instagram ad or even just a post about what we do, and suddenly they're a lifetime customer because you've changed their life on a daily basis. So it's stuff like that that's always cool to make sure that we share in the team and let the team know. And we've even got a work chat channel now that's all about customer reviews so that we can share the positive. I mean, we share the negatives ones too, because sometimes they're quite interesting and good for people to know that, you know, it's not all rainbows and daisies every time. But yeah, it's been really important for us as a business, I would say, to just communicate more around what we're doing. And it gives people context, right? Like if, you know, the other week, like we had a event, it was a mindful morning and we did like gratitude, breath work and yoga. And I mean, I was basically just like non-contactable for 2 weeks because I was trying to prep that whole event. And it was good to let everyone know that, because rather than them being like, oh God, like Chanel's being a bitch today, I'm like, no, I'm just stressed out trying to organize this event for us. So just, yeah, like letting everyone know what we're doing. And I think like getting the company buy-in as well, right? Like a lot of, I think when I first started, it was sort of like, oh, we should do all this cool shit. And it's like, cool, but if we don't know about the cool shit we're doing, then why is anyone else going to care about it, you know? And I think even in some of like the retail meetings we have, it's been really cool to see, you know, like the buyers of like Pack and Save or Countdown start to see us out in market and realize that, you know, we are actually doing things out in market to try and drive consumers into their stores. So it's even getting their buy-in and seeing that, you know, we're not just expecting to be put on the shelf and sell through our stock. We're actively trying to do things that will help all of us.
Yeah. And also there's just that piece of like the logistics team and teams like that that aren't customer facing aren't going to hear the good things unless you share them, or they're like actively going to your Google My Business reviews or something, which is not really going to happen. No, that's not going to happen. And so like sometimes you can just, it's more than you just saying thank you of like, thanks for organizing that thing, but it's also like, here's some feedback from customers as to like how it really changed something. Yeah. And also I find that knowing more about each other's roles can usually mean that you share information with context. So like, because they know why you're doing something, the logistics or sales team can explain to you and you can explain to them based in context of like why. So then you all know more about each other's roles. And so then there's more inherent just like respect and everyone kind of works together better on things, but also just from a communication standpoint, because you know why the question is being asked without them having to kind of like figure out the context.
Oh, 100%. And like, yeah. And like, I know now too, you know, like if there's like a big event coming up or something like that, I know that I need to give the warehouse 2 weeks lead time to get that amount of product. And like those are the kind of things I didn't know. And I didn't know that I was screwing people over by, you know, putting those big orders in. And I didn't know the amount of work that went into it. So it was, yeah, just communicating. Like I'm massive at communicating with everyone, probably to the point where they find it a little bit annoying, but I'm just like, you know, group hug, one team, one dream, like let's go.
Yeah. No, I love that. And then in the marketing piece, we've talked a little bit about podcast promotions. So that may be something also that's a little bit different to how other FMCG brands would do it. But working in what is kind of still a new space is podcast promotions. But also rather than it being like an ad read, that it's kind of more like integrated into the podcast. So do you want to tell the listeners about that?
Yeah, so I think it was last year. Yeah, it will be last year because that's when I started. Last year, I guess, again, part of me approaching our marketing from a non-traditional FMCG approach was figuring out who we could partner with that we thought really matched the brand. We're always looking for people. So I guess for context, everyone works with influencers. We work with people of influence. So if you ever see someone promoting our product who's quite well known, they've genuinely achieved something in their life. They're a mental health advocate. They've been a pro surfer. They're an Olympic level athlete. I suppose like for us, that's super important because as a brand, there's no point us trying to communicate the value of our product if then we're not working with the right people to do that. And I would say that last year we kind of went on this journey and figured out, right, like who do we see in the world, and it was really just on social media, who do we see that are epic humans who we think would really like advocate for our product. And I stumbled across Cooper Chapman, who now I joke about, if we could have made him in a test tube for our brand, like that's what would have happened, because he's honestly just the most perfect human, obviously from a brand point of view, but even just personally, like this guy is like a pro surfer turned mental health advocate. He is like happiness in human form. He's just so captivating. So I very much just like shoot my shot all the time and expect it to go nowhere. But I'm like, hey, if you don't ask, you don't know, right? So I think I DM'd him on Instagram, said I worked at Ārepa. I think I actually probably pretended I was Angus because we get a lot more replies if people think it's the founder of the company reaching out instead of the marketing manager they've never heard of. So yeah, I think I DM said like, hey, would love to have a chat. This is who we are, what we do. It's very hard to, I guess, nail our purpose and product down in a short little Instagram message, but I did try my best. And then he got back to us and was like, yeah, I'd love to jump on a call, talk to him. I mean, I had to like contain my excitement. I think I just, in the first 5 minutes, I was like, sold, like, well, whatever you want, we'll do it. Like, just, please, like, talk about our product. But that was really cool because figuring out what that partnership looked like for us and his podcast, he runs a podcast called The Good Humans Pod, and he's all about interviewing people from all walks of life who have had struggles that you'd never even know about. And then just he's an amazing interviewer as well, like just getting out of people. He always asks what they're grateful for, and yeah, just about their journey. So I think for us, from a brand point of view, to be honest, like it didn't even feel like a brand partnership. It just felt like a personal partnership. Like I think about it now, to this day, we've supported him for over a year, and if our product didn't exist, it still feels right. And I think that's where as a brand, when you've hit the nail on the head. And like, sure, maybe it's not going to be the first time you do it, and for us, it was just lucky that it was with him, and I'm so grateful. But yeah, I think for us, like that worked so well. And it was because we didn't want it to just be brand push. Like nothing we do, we want to be brand push. So even the people we work with, we never want them showing up on your Instagram feed with the bottle beside their head talking about the benefits, right? Like we want you to see the product integrated into their life, how they're actually using it, rather than being like, oh my God, this is at Coles for $5. Like,
Look, it's purple.
yeah, that
Yeah.
is not what we do. So I think like when it came to talking about what that partnership looked like on the podcast, it was very much like me saying to Cooper, you tell me what you think would work and I'll see. And straight away he was like, right, this isn't us putting an ad in the middle of the podcast. This isn't at the start doing some kind of tacky read. It was very much conversational, of Cooper introducing his podcast, saying what it's about, being like, thank to our sponsors, drink Ārepa, they're this purple brain drink, this is what they do. And I mean, every read at all of his podcast episodes is different because he does it live. And I think that's what's so good, because it's literally just what's on the tip of his tongue in the moment. So it's not scripted. You're not going to hear the same shit every single time. We also have drinks appear in his podcast recordings. And again, that was just natural. This wasn't some big brand idea. We were just like, hey, like if you want to have a drink on camera with a guest, and maybe, at the start of each interview, crack a drink and cheers before it kicks off, like that'd be great. But if not, no stress. So I think stuff like that, you kind of just have to let it evolve organically for it to have the biggest impact. And I mean, sure, like now we're looking at more branding options within the podcast now that we've solidified the idea. But I think for us, like if you start organically, then anything you build after that makes sense. Whereas if we'd approached it from a real strong brand point of view of like, this is what we are, this is what we do, we were just paying you to provide us a platform that we don't have ourselves, people know that straight away, especially now. Like no one, I think brands have to start being really careful the way they approach their partnerships. I mean, sometimes you see, these tacky Instagram posts of people being like, oh, thanks to X shoe brand for keeping me running today. And I'm like, no one believes in that, like you might get the odd person that's like, oh, okay, well now I'll Google that shoe brand because they told me about it. But everyone knows that that's a sponsored post, that they've been paid, So I think for us, the podcast route was a way for us to show up so organically on a platform that made sense, in a moment that made sense, with a person who made sense. And the fact that our drinks fit into it was like the icing on top of the cake.
Yeah, exactly. And in a way of, you approach things that suit your values and the mission behind the company, and then everything else just kind of falls into place. That you're specifically choosing things based on how they look and feel, and how the interaction will be for the customer, and how can this be the most authentic thing, but then not controlling it too much, because obviously that would be inauthentic. So just figuring out kind of like what best aligns, not like how can I get millions of impressions, basically.
And I think, it's, I don't want to say it's easy to say it as a purpose-driven company, but if you are purpose-driven and you know what you're trying to achieve, these kind of decisions aren't that hard to make. I think it's the people who don't know what they're trying to achieve other than sell a product and make money that struggle, because then suddenly they're trying all these different things that make no sense as a brand, let alone as a consumer potentially buying the product. And like, I think that's what I'm so grateful for with Ārepa as a business and as a brand, is we know what we're trying to do. We're trying to make brains work better. How are we going to do that? We're going to offer experiences further than just the product. We're going to get people to talk about it in a setting where it makes sense. We're going to show up at events where it makes sense for us to be at. We're also going to foster like up and coming uni students who are studying brain, like we're going to support that next generation. So it's, and like none of this is hard for us to do. It's all been really easy stuff because it makes sense for us as a brand. And I think a lot of people sit back and they're like, how do you guys come up with this stuff? And I'm like, it's easy because we know what we're trying to achieve. And, as soon as you know that and you're not going to waver from those values or from your mission, it's very easy to start thinking about what you should be doing. The companies that struggle to do that are the companies that don't know what they're trying to achieve, or are trying to achieve things for the wrong reason.
Yeah, it's just like, because the purpose is real, the purpose is wasn't like something that was concocted because it sounds good. So yeah. The next stage could be one of big growth. There was a few announcements earlier in the year about certain investors that have come on board. How does that change, your role, the business, maybe expanding into more countries? How does that impact your role and the business as a whole?
Yeah, I would say like hardest secret to keep. That happened September, October last year, and we weren't allowed to talk about it. And it's so hard because everyone, I suppose, that we were talking to after that moment knows that we're on a growth trajectory, knows that crazy things are happening. So, they're all asking for updates. They're like, oh, is anything exciting happening lately? And I'm just like, nope, nothing. Move on. So like being able to announce that once we was like just this weight lifted off my shoulders. I would say with that investment from Stephen Adams, it doesn't initially change anything in the business as far as I'm aware. It was very much just him wanting to get behind a product that he believed in, and he's massively into agriculture and farming and all of that, sort of offering the next solution for, a non-highly medicated society. So at the moment, his investment is strictly just that. Sure, in years to come, like, would I love to see us using him in a campaign as we launch into the States? Yes, but for now, like, that is not what we're doing with it. So I would say in the day-to-day right now, it doesn't necessarily change anything. It more just changes, I would say, the forecast of what we're trying to achieve. And I mean, we've got Stephen Adams on, we've got the board, everyone's working together to be like, right, in 2023 we're here, but what does 2025, 26, 2033 look like for the company? It's very much like setting those goals. And I think Angus and Zach have alluded to it before, when they first created the company, they were like, right, we want to be, we want to make $1 million helping brains. And then it was like, sweet, now we want to be a $10 million company, $100 million company. And then when the CEO of Zespri came on, he was like, well, you guys are thinking too small. Like, you could make this a $1 billion company. And I think like that's just that classic like Kiwi thing, right? Like, oh, $1 million would be great, 10 million would be great. And then you get someone who's done it, like been there, done that, who's like, no, like think bigger. So I think like that has sort of prompted, I suppose, like all the investment has prompted us to really be like, what is that 10-year plan? And I mean, we've got some crazy shit written down. Like, we want to put Ārepa on the moon. We want to fuel NASA. We want to, have a crazy headquarters somewhere, maybe shaped like a brain. I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot coming up, both obviously big ideas, but also like massive clinical studies and results coming up that will allow us to play in spaces that I would say we never thought we would be. And that's just a testament to the science that's been done behind the product. And I suppose like that's the benefit of playing the long game. We constantly, have opportunities and people come to us and be like, oh, you could do this, you could do that. And we're like, yeah, but those are the very immediate wins for very small value versus if we just wait another 5 years, like it's all going to pay off. And I think that's really what we're focused on. We can do everything that we're doing now, which is great to build the brand and build the community, but then all the big stuff, in the next 5 years, like you're going to see it and it's going to be insane.
And how many of those things that you are doing are like repeatable, like the men's mental health? Are you doing the mindful mornings as like a repetitive thing so that they can slowly grow over time? And like you do one now in Auckland and then another time you do one in Wellington or Sydney or Melbourne. Are those kind of things that you're repeating, or is it kind of each interaction is its own unique thing?
I think at first, so like with the Brothers Brain Chat, for example, that was an idea that I realized when I was going through, when I first started, I think it was my first week, I was clearing out Instagram DMs, which was just chaos because no one was replying. And I saw For All the Brothers show up and I clicked on it and realized it was a men's mental health account. And I reached out and I was like kind of like stalking like what the previous comms had been and realized the boys had a good relationship with them. And I reached out to him, and it's Zane Munro who runs it. And I mean, he got nominated for, Kiwi of the Year. He's just an insane human being. Again, like a New Zealand version of Cooper. I mean, they both got on a podcast and it was like
amazing.
It was like fireworks. I was like, oh my God, like you go. But yeah, stuff like that. It was just, again, like these things just start from ideas, right? Like I was like, sweet, here's someone who's tapping into men's mental health, who's a huge mental health advocate. We've got the product that, is wanting to make people's brains work better. How can we kind of combine the two in this beautiful little initiative that allows us to put our money where our mouth is, but also provide something for the community that is an actual safe space, I would say, for men. I mean, mental health in New Zealand is huge. Men's mental health in New Zealand is a huge problem. So things like that, I would say at the start, were just an idea. I mean, everything is an idea, right? But we're sort of like, let's just do it once and see how we go. And I think the first event we'd ever done for that Brothers Brain Chat, I mean, we held it at the office because it made sense. Like that's our space. We wanted to welcome people into a safe environment. We didn't want to be hiring out at a venue that didn't make sense for our brand. I think the first one we ever did, we had like 30 guys show up. And like, it's annoying because I can't be there because it's men's only. So I was like, oh, I've created this event and I can't witness it, which just did not do well for my OCD, but that was fine. But I think I convinced my boyfriend to go along to the first one. I mean, and he came home and I was like, how was it? And he was like, yeah, good. And I was like, what else?
Yeah,
and he
use
was
more
like,
words.
yeah, I was like, give me something. Like, come on. Classic male, but it's fine. But yeah, stuff like that. And like the mindful mornings, those started out just once as an idea of things to do. The mindful morning that we recently did in New Zealand, we actually did it in Mermaid Beach on the Gold Coast first with Cooper. So we actually had Cooper host it for us. And again, that was just to see if it was going to work. A lot of these things are kind of just these random thoughts I have at like 2:00 in the morning. And I'm like, oh, let's try it, see what happens. And we started that, and it was a free event at 6:30 in the morning on Mermaid Beach. Come down, have a drink. It was with Cooper, who was going to lead gratitude and mindfulness. Then we had Lululemon on board with a flow. We had 80 people show up at 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday to learn how to love their brain. And that's the kind of stuff from a marketing point of view. Like, did I always hope that would happen? 100%. But did I think it was going to happen to that extent? Probably not, honestly. Like, I'm always optimistic as hell, but in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, like, are people really going to do this? So I think once you prove that that is what people want, and same with the Mindful Morning event we just did recently in New Zealand, we sold out within like 3 minutes, to the point where we put another one on and sold out in 5 minutes. So it's like when you start tapping into those ideas that make sense for your community, where they can see what you're trying to achieve and it makes sense for your brand, that's the kind of stuff we're always going to keep on doing. Like the Brothers Brain Chats are every single month. So every single month, if you're a male struggling, you know that the second Tuesday or the first Tuesday, you can come to Ārepa HQ and be supported by guys you've never met before who aren't going to judge. You know, we get guys from all walks of life. Last night we did it and we had like 40 something guys show up. And it's just insane because you don't, from a brand point of view, it's amazing to be able to run these things, but you just underestimate the impact that can have. And it's like people say like, oh yeah, we could use influencers, or we could do big out of home billboards or whatever, but it's the community stuff that makes the difference, because it's just this ripple effect of word of mouth, which is like the best kind of marketing you can have, because it's stuff that you don't buy, you don't pay for. And if someone believes in a product or believes in what a brand is doing, that's worth so much more than some $5,000 billboard in the middle of Queen Street, you know?
Yeah, it's like the drink is good, but then there's the brand on top of it. And that's what, sometimes people want to talk about the most, because how many times can you tell your friend to buy this one drink? But you can invite them to something. And the thing is too, sometimes we underestimate the not only the impact, but the buy-in that people will have to something. And so like realistically, if you'd thought, this is a good idea, but I don't know if the brand is there yet, let's wait until we're at XYZ, and you don't present the opportunity, and therefore people can't show up because it doesn't exist. So sometimes you just kind of have to take the leap and see what happens, and take the feedback that happens. If people say, if not many people show up, you can ask them, the people who did show up, why they came, and then you learn what you need to emphasize in the future and go from there. But you have to take that first step for it to actually happen.
Yeah, and I think too, a lot of people kind of just think that like, oh, well, you guys just randomly decided to do an event and it just, you lucked into it working for you. And I'm like, no, like when I came on board last year, like we hadn't done these kind of things, and it was a lot of work looking at, I guess from my point of view and my role, like what made sense for us to do as a brand. And on top of that, not only what made sense, but what hadn't other people tried. And like I took a lot of inspiration from non-FMCG brands and what they were doing, and I was like, why can't we do that? Like, just because no one's done it doesn't mean it's not a good idea. It just means no one's brave enough, or no one's had the community or the brand awareness to do it. And I mean, like I said, we started doing these back in last year when we only had 3% brand awareness. So it's not to say that like you need a certain amount of brand awareness to do it. It's more just actually doing the work in the brand itself and being like, have we positioned the brand to a point where doing something like this not only makes sense, but is going to be impactful? And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is because they're like, oh, well, Ārepa did this and we'll do this. But if you haven't built the brand to what it needs to be first, it's never going to hit, So I think like that's something that I've definitely learned in my role, is there is a perception of people being like, oh, well, like you guys just lucked into that. I'm like, no one got lucky into what we've done. There is so much thought behind what we did. Like I couldn't tell you how many hours I would have spent, when I first started brainstorming ideas for the brand that I thought eventually were going to pay off. And some of them, like the Mindful Mornings, we've only just done now. And I thought about that 9 months ago or a year ago, and I knew it wasn't time to execute on it yet. But everything that I was building in between that was to then allow us to have an event like a Mindful Morning, and then seeing it go off the way it did. It's like, holy shit, yes, like we've finally done it. And, like the next idea will come around, and maybe it's not time for it now, but in 6 months or 12 months, we'll build up to that.
Yeah, totally. And with those ideas of yours, is there a process of you fully empowered to just go ahead and do stuff? Or is there like, you've got to run it by someone? How does that all work?
I think when I was on my own last year, it was pretty much just go. Which, I mean, like for some things it was great. Other things I probably should have, had a little bit more thought or bit of a process and things. But now that we've got the marketing director in Australia and we've got our marketing junior and our design team, we do very much collaborate on everything we do. I mean, no idea is a stupid idea, but there are some things that we're like, that's probably not a priority right now, maybe in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, or, when we've got bigger budgets. I think it is, a lot of people think that because we are quite successful, we've got these mammoth budgets, and honestly, we don't. We just hustle so hard. Like, I rely very heavily on the relationships that I have built with people that I work with. I think it's a testament to the brand that we've built that people want to be involved. But, I remember reaching out to brands for goodie bag inclusion, and I was essentially like saying like, oh, this is what we do, this is who we are, like this is what the event is. And it was like I kind of had to not fight, but I sort of had to really push to, I guess, people to understand the value of what we were trying to do. And then you look at the Mindful Morning event we did 2 weeks ago. I barely had to ask. We had brands reaching out to us saying like, hey, we see you've got this event coming, like, would you include us? And I mean, our goodie bags were insane. Like, I kind of went overboard with it. I think they ended up being like over $500 goodie bags, but it was just amazing to see that transition from where we were last year to where we are now. And from the outside looking in, everyone's like, oh, well, that's always been the case. But from internally, it's not. You can see the brand grow and the opportunities now that we're getting. A lot of it we do have to, as a marketing team, kind of go away and be like, yes, this is really cool, but does this serve us right now? Is this our priority, or is this something we want to focus on next year when we've got more time to think about it properly, when we've got a bigger budget, when we can execute on it really carefully? Because I think that's what a lot of people get lost in. Like I said before, it's the quick wins where you start to lose what you've built. And then if you do that enough times, you're suddenly not worth nothing, but like you kind of butchered what you were trying to achieve when you could have just waited. And I think for us, that's what we've gotten really good at now, is prioritizing what's important to us right now. Yes, it's really hard to say no, but if we can, say yes to that in a few years' time and do it to the level that we want to do it, because I mean, now our baseline for execution when we started was here. Now it's up here, and like, we will not compromise. Like, I think a lot of people, I feel sorry sometimes for JC Deco and stuff when we're emailing Billboard Creative and we want to do touch-ups and like little things. They're probably sitting there like, why do you care? Like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, it matters to me. It matters to us, and it matters to the brand that we've built. So I think like I never apologize for being that nitpicky or OCD about what we do, because at the end of the day, when you execute it and you get the feedback that you do, it's kind of just confirmation of like, thank God I stood up for what we were trying to achieve and what we wanted to do, because it's paid off and then some.
Yeah, exactly. And also with a lot of that stuff where you feel like you're being nitpicky, it's about executing it correctly. And of course, you have so many things going on, and we are often told that we shouldn't be too much. And so often, like, you're really not actually they're not actually asking that much. It's really just we want to do it right the first time, rather than driving past something and being like, oh, we really should have done that edit. But it's too late now. So yeah.
And I think like for us too, that's always really important to get everyone's feedback, because I'm very aware that just because my marketing lens thinks one thing doesn't mean that the design lens is going to think the same, or even if we'll get one of the boys from sales or logistics just to look at something, it's like there's always so many different opinions. And like, yes, while everyone's opinion may not always be taken on board, it's nice to kind of like allow that process to happen, to be like, because you get tunnel vision, right? Like, we will work on a campaign 2 or 3 months beforehand, and by the end of it we're like, just go, like, we know what we're trying to achieve, we just want to get it out the door. But you've got to be so careful to not lose yourself in like being so close to the finish line that then you make silly mistakes that negate all that work you've done for the last few months. And I think for us, like, that's where we find so much value in what we do, and me especially as a marketing manager, is like, I'm so aware and take so much pride in what we're trying to achieve that I will not accept anything less. And yes, it may be difficult to work with me, or yes, there may be tons of emails back and forth, but at the end of the day, if we're achieving what we want and it ends up being how we picture it, like, for me, that's worth it. Like, I'm sorry that I'm that passionate about what I'm trying to do, but when it pays off, it's kind of like, sweet, fuel to the fire, on to the next one.
Yeah, and it reinforces you for next time. If like it was worth putting that much effort into getting the details right, so let's do that again. Let's not like be like, oh, it's too hard to do it right. Like, no. Love that. So let's wrap it up with some quick fire questions. So who inspires you in business or marketing?
Oh, I would say a brand that inspires me would be Gymshark. I love, I mean, all of their, I would say from an employee level, all their employees are great on LinkedIn. I'm a massive fan of LinkedIn. I mean, I feel like it's how I've built my own personal brand. But also just from a brand point of view, that's where I took a lot of inspiration into what we've done at Ārepa in terms of creating community initiatives. But then it's seeing how the brand has evolved, and like that's what inspires me the most. Is it's like you just have to have an idea that is bigger than yourself. It's for a purpose. You're trying to achieve something, and then watching that organically grow into something bigger that then allows the community to get behind you and get involved.
Yeah. You know, that makes sense. It's bigger than just the product. Yeah.
Mm.
What creative pursuit are you enjoying or feeling drawn to right now in your work or personal life?
At the moment, we're planning a campaign in September for, is it September? Yeah. We're basically going to challenge the nation to go caffeine free for a week. So really just figuring out now how that would play out, and again, like what we're trying to achieve. You know, it's not to drive sales. It's literally to educate people on the benefit of giving up caffeine. I think something I'm excited to work on because it's a lot of internal like creative work, which I really like. It also allows us to have like quite a multi-channel approach, which I'm always really interested in when we do our marketing. I think that's something that's worked really well for us in the past, is sort of being everywhere all at once. So yeah, this kind of allows us to do that, and then it'll sort of lead into a bigger out of home brand campaign that we're doing in October, and then November's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, then we're at Christmas, and then it's the downward spiral. So yeah, it's sort of just all hands on deck at the moment, because I mean the end of the year is coming, which is terrifying.
Yeah, that's the thing about marketing is you're always like 3 months ahead. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're thinking about September, but then very quickly it becomes this time of like marketing chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think personally, I would say creatively, I've built out a marketing club um, with help of the Marketing Association. So that's been really rewarding, really shocking too, I would say. It sort of started from a throwaway comment at a talk I was giving at the MA alongside Tracksuit, that I was kind of thinking of putting something like this together. And then I think, God, like 3 months later, we were at sort of 300 people, and now we're at 430, and it's just going insane. But that's definitely been like my little passion project. And I think a lot of that stemmed from me being the only marketer in a job, and realizing like I never really had that support or mentorship that I needed. So, being able to create a community for other marketers like me, and, we're always on there asking people for advice or even just venting about what we're dealing with. Like that's been really, really exciting for me to see that grow. So yeah, that's kind of in the background of, I guess, working full time.
Yeah. And also so important for businesses where there is only one marketing person, or maybe the marketing team is, but it's like mostly design people or something like that, where they're just the one marketing person, or they don't have somebody else to bounce the social media or email or whatever questions about. And sometimes it's just nice to get out of your own ecosystem and ask for feedback from what everyone else is doing, and then see what you want to implement yourself. So yeah, love
And
that.
I think it makes a massive difference too. Like I look at, when I started at Ārepa, like I said, I was the only marketing person. And, at the start, like there wasn't really an approval process for what I wanted to do. It was sort of just like, well, if you think it's a good idea, do it. And like, great for me, because I'm someone who loves to, like do what I think is going to be right, and I love being right. But, it would have been great to have someone to bounce those ideas off, because I've got tunnel vision the way that I think about marketing. And that's not to say that I'm always going to be right or that's the best way to do it. So it's been really, really helpful, even just for me personally, being like, hey guys, like we're putting this campaign together, or what do people think about this? Or how have you, I didn't know how to media buy before I was at Ārepa. So, trying to book, 100K worth of billboards was like panic inducing. Thank God I had the drink to calm me down. But I was like, holy shit, like, how am I responsible for this much money? I don't know how to buy billboards. Like I ended up learning trial by fire. But, I find it so wholesome now. Like there's people who were in my position a year ago posting in the marketing club, and I'm able to give them the advice that I wish I had a year ago. So it's just been, yeah, super rewarding and wholesome, to be honest. And just, yeah, I think realized that there was a massive gap in the market for, I guess, creating like a little fun community like that we have. So it's been super exciting to do.
Yeah, amazing. So what is your favorite place on the internet right now? Is it the marketing club?
It is, to be honest, it's very biased, but I love it. It's just so cool to see other marketers support each other. And I mean, we try and do like in-person meetups and stuff, and it's just been, yeah, the most, I suppose, like outside. It's still work related ish, but it's stuff that I enjoy. It's kind of like a little passion project. So I mean, I'm constantly on Slack, just seeing what everyone's talking about. I feel like a proud little mum being like, oh.
Nice. What are you looking forward to the most in the next year of work?
I would say probably where the business is going. Like I alluded to before, there are a lot of exciting studies that are coming up or about to be published that I think will allow us to play in a space that maybe people suspected, maybe people didn't, but it's just there's always things going on and we're constantly iterating and testing the product and testing the science and doing new things. And I think that for me is exciting as an employee of a brand that's constantly trying to be so innovative because, we're as a person, I always challenge the status quo. So to be working for a business that does the same, it's kind of just like this perfect little match for me. And I'm excited just personally to see like what's going to happen, what that impact is going to be. And then also from a brand point of view, like how we just keep building on what we're already doing.
And then what are you looking forward to the most in the offline world in the next year?
I think one thing I've been really focused on is work-life balance. That's something that I would say last year was really hard for me to achieve because of how much we had going on, as well as being, the only marketing person for quite a long period of time. And I think like I'm always very driven professionally, but always very driven personally. And I'd like to know that, I'm giving my work life and my personal life the same kind of attention. And yes, I like completely admit I let that drop last year, but I suppose when there's so much exciting stuff happening at work, it is really hard to sort of switch off. So this year I'm excited for myself to just kind of prioritize what switching off looks like, as well as just, I think, finding time for myself too, figuring out what it is that I enjoy aside from work. Like I said, I kind of function like Ārepa is my own business sometimes because I'm so passionate about what I do. And that's great, but there's consequences with that as well. So yeah, just figuring out what more of a balance looks like for me is really my priority. And I'm sure my partner will be grateful for it as well.
Yeah, sometimes when we love our job so much, like you get a lot of fulfillment out of it. So then
Genuinely.
you don't feel maybe the need to like pick up knitting or sewing or whatever, and like carve out your weekends or make, because you're 3 months ahead on everything, booking the vacation sometimes doesn't happen. But yeah, it's finding out what work-life balance works for you and trying to make it happen. So
Yeah, and I think too, a lot of people, there's a misconception like, yes, your job isn't everything and it's not who you are, but I also think it's okay if it is part of who you are. Like I'm well aware that I do work very hard and I probably work too hard sometimes to the point where those lines get blurred, but I don't think that makes me a bad person. I don't think that means I've done something wrong. It just means that I've found something that I'm so passionate about. And if it wasn't for Ārepa, it'd be for another company, or just in marketing in my role. Like just because I enjoy what I do so much doesn't, and like yes, that happens to be work. But if it was the gym or if it was running, I would be considered normal and everyone would be like, "Oh, that's great that you love your hobby so much." But because it's work, it's kind of met with this like preconceived conception that it's a bad thing. And I'm like, well, if marketing wasn't a job, then I'd just have this really cool hobby. But it just happens to be a job and I can't help that. So I think like as much as it's great to find work-life balance, I think it's important too to mention that like it's okay not to have work-life balance the way that people think you should either.
yeah, also balance is a strange word. And also you kind of have to consider like if you were a man, would it actually be a different assumption of that? And so therefore it's like, well, if it would be different, then also the perception that it's too much work is wrong because that's just gendered anyway. So
Yeah,
we
I
don't
mean
care about those things.
that's a whole other conversation, but I'm sure yes, if I was a male, it would be perceived very differently, as
Yeah.
my personality would be perceived very differently. But
You love your job. That's amazing. Also, we definitely don't want you to be in a situation where you don't enjoy your job because you spend a lot of time there.
yeah, and something I've learned recently, like I went and I guess spoke to someone, which again, like I don't think needs to be taboo. Like if you need help, just admit it. And I went and spoke to someone and, kind of worked out that the reason I am the way I am as an employee is because I grew up with my parents both owning their own businesses. So I genuinely thought that level of work ethic was baseline. And I didn't know any different. So when I've come into a business as an employee, do I work harder than most? Maybe, I don't know. But for me, like I'm always going to act as if it's my business because that's what I saw my parents do. And I think like it's important to understand, I'm not saying everyone needs to go to a therapist and, figure out why they function the way they do, but I mean, it'd help a lot of people. But I think it's important to understand too, like why we work the way we do and why we're satisfied or find satisfaction in what we do. And it's, if it is because, your parents own your own business or because you're trying to build your career, like great, like go for it. I don't think, these perceptions of people working too hard should be stopped. Like I've made it very apparent to all my friends and family that right now it's important for me to build my career. And it's almost weird for me as a female in my 30s not to be thinking about getting pregnant or having babies. And I'm like, right now that is not important to me and that should be okay. And that doesn't need to be a bigger conversation than it is. So I think, like a lot of people are like, oh, find work-life balance, but also, make sure you're focusing on your personal life and, oh, when are you having children and when are you doing this? And it's like,
and then all of a sudden
oh
you're
my
burnt
God.
out and you can't do anything and people are like, oh, what's wrong? And it's like, shut up.
Yeah, like everyone's on their own path. Just let it be their own path and like let's stop trying to control people. Everyone just needs to breathe and have an Ārepa.
Yeah, exactly. And if that changes, cool. And if it doesn't change, cool. Sweet. Yeah, no, I love that. If someone is listening to this episode as either a marketing manager or a business owner and they want to grow their own marketing and business, what is the one thing you recommend that they do or evaluate next?
Ooh, I would definitely say figure out what it is as a business you were trying to achieve. Like I said earlier, I think figuring out that bigger purpose, that bigger mission, what is driving you forward. And it doesn't need to always be earth shattering. Like I'm aware, like us saying we're on a mission to make brains work better, like that's a big ass call because everyone has a brain. Like that's basically the whole world. So, it doesn't need to be these big things, but I think just figuring out what that purpose is within your company and then looking at what you can do to make sure that everything is aligned with fulfilling that purpose is the most important. And I think a lot of people will be surprised how easily that starts dictating and prioritizing what initiatives they should do next.
Yeah, perfect. Alrighty, well, thanks for joining me. This has been amazing. Thanks for telling us all about your job and everything that you are loving about it and everything that's coming up for you. It's amazing.
No, thank you so much for having me. I love talking about myself, so this was fabulous.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Digital Hive Podcast. If you're enjoying the podcast, I'd love it if you could share it with a friend or on Instagram and tag me at Honeypot Digital. To find out more about Honeypot Digital and the work I do, or to find more episodes of the podcast and handy tips for small businesses marketing online, head to honeypotdigital.com.